Curious now,
Back in the
because
day-
like if a girl pursues you and you reject her, is she like, well, you're fucking gay? You know what I mean?
That's happened to me. Yeah.
What?
Like, back in the day, like before I was married, like there's people that I rejected and they're like, well, they get mad at me. And I'm like, well, then why did you even try to get with me in the first place? Like,
Wow.
what?
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I'm Mario.
And I'm Peter.
And we're
Guys That Listen.
On today's show, we got the host of OC's hottest hip hop show.
Yeah.
He's funky, he's fresh, he has nicer hair than his girlfriend. It's Cesar Rodriguez.
Hey, nicer hair than my wife Carla. It's hard to beat. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for having me here. Oh my God.
He's so used to
I'm
it.
so used to like, oh, thanks for coming to my place. That it's like, thanks for allowing me to come to yours, guys.
Does it feel different being on the other end of it?
Yeah, I never thought I would get nervous. And look at me now, I'm nervous.
Oh, now we're gonna ask you questions. So tell us about yourself. Obviously, we know that you have a radio show. Like, just explain how that came about.
Yeah, so it all started in 2015. I was in college. I was at Cal State Fullerton. I was kind of like realizing that a film major is a lot more than I thought it would be. Like, oh my God, like working on a film production was a little intimidating. But I was doing it. I'm still taking classes on like film production.
Oh, nice.
And then my cousin, he was a radio host for Hits 101 Radio. He was doing an electronic music show, and his partner got sick, and he was like, "Hey, come be a guest host," because me and my cousin DJ ADM, we grew up together, so we already had like a natural back and forth. So we went. It was such a great time that I was like, well, I don't like electronic music as much as I like hip hop. Do you think we do a hip hop show? And so he's like, yeah, I have this slot on Fridays. It's at noon that it's a lunch show, but we can make it into something different. And so that's how the Rodriguez show started.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that was almost 8 years ago in April, and we haven't missed a Friday ever since.
That's crazy. That's dedication. 8 years every single Friday.
The man does not have commitment issues.
I mean, what would you call it? Is it full-time, part-time? Like that Rodriguez show, what would you call that gig?
It started as a part-time thing because I didn't have any audio editing skills at the beginning. But little by little, I learned how to do it.
Yeah.
So at first, it was just like, oh, fresh off, like record it as if it's live, and then just whatever it is, just throw it up online without any post-production.
Yeah.
And so that's when it was part-time because it was just like once a week for fun.
Yeah.
And then little by little, I was like, well, I can learn how to do this stuff. And so it wasn't until like a year in that I started a GoFundMe to get like microphones and like a mixer and stuff. And that's when it became a full-time thing because it was like, okay, now like I'm doing a lot of work on it. And then, promoting it, first it was like one post a week on Instagram. Now it's like 4 or 5. And so it's become like, a full-time job in addition to, my actual job.
So honestly, what drives you?
The art of creating. It's one of those, I tell that because we've had so many people featured on the show currently. DJ Mondo, who's my partner.
Shout out to Mondo.
Yeah, shout out Mondo.
Shout out Mondo.
Yeah, so, I always tell them, like, the only thing we can get from this for now is the artistic reward of it. Having a great interview or, like, we do our show every week, but we do special, like, documentaries where we do, like, we have some of our favorite artists perform, like, on stage, film it, and then, make it its own thing. Like, stuff like that is just so rewarding. So just being able to keep doing that stuff. I mean, honestly, like, it wasn't until about a year ago in April that we did our 7-year anniversary that I had a full-time job before, and then after that 7-year anniversary, I was like, you know what, I want this to be my life. So I quit my full-time job.
Oh, wow.
And so that's when I was like, okay, like I'm not that I didn't take it seriously before, but it was like having 2 40-hour jobs.
Damn, I love that. I love that. It's that, there's no parachute, there's no backup, like you're all in.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you said before, one of the reasons why you got into it because you started with EDM, like a similar like show, and then you decided to switch to hip hop because that's something you're more passionate about. Were you always that into music, or was it just specifically at a time that you discovered that you were really gonna dive deep into it?
Yeah, I think in terms of like music, it wasn't until I thought about it like 4 or 5 years ago, like and I'll tell you just how much music matters to me. Like, what is my religion in sense? Because I'm not a very religious guy, but it's like music has always been like my religion. It's it helped me connect with my family. Like my dad, he gave me all my music taste when I was growing up, and so he's been gone now for, I guess tomorrow it'll be 14 years. Tomorrow, yeah, 14-year anniversary of his death. So it was my way to connect with him, and so it was always something that was really important to me, and I just didn't know like what to do with that love for it. And then it wasn't until this opportunity came up with the show that I was like, oh, like I get to do the thing I love, like just talk about music.
Wow.
And
that's
it's kind of
crazy.
like honoring some of like the memories with him too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna cry on this podcast again. Ah! What did he introduce you to? What was the?
Well, the first thing he introduced me to, there was a CD that was like it was called Millennium Hip Hop Party, and it had the best songs from the 90s up to 2000s, the best hip hop songs.
Oh, nice.
And there was a song on there called "What's My Name" by Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is so great. And then he goes, yeah, you like this song? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, what about this song? And it was Nothing But a G Thing by Dr. Dre. And I was like, what? This song? So from there, it was like hip hop was like my favorite genre.
Yeah.
And that's where it all grew from. And then he also like introduced me to like the opposite of that, where it was like psychedelic 60s rock, like The Doors. And like,
Yeah.
like he had like a 200 CDs collection when I was growing up. So I would just, when I got to appreciate it, I was like looking through, I was like, man, there's so many different things here. So from there, I just kind of grew. My music taste grew from there.
Damn, your dad was a G, showing you Snoop Dogg,
Yeah.
Dr. Dre.
Yeah.
When I was like in middle school, even earlier than that. I think I've always had that trust to just be like, well, here's like something that maybe it's not appropriate for your age, but you seem to be mature enough to handle it.
Yeah.
And so that's why I appreciate my parents letting me have that freedom.
I was gonna say, so you said music, hip hop is like your religion. So who's your God?
Well, I mean, I would say music is my religion.
Okay.
And in terms of having a God, I mean, I think it's just the feeling of live music. That's where I would feel like in tears. Like even even at anything. Like I was at Lady Gaga once and I was completely sober. I was watching Lady Gaga just speak in the middle of her concert, and I was like, man, I've never felt so like emotional about anything that wasn't like, like a relationship or anything like that. Like that's where I knew it was a connection. So like I don't think there's like a God. Like there's people that I admired, and people that it's hard to admit that you still admire, like Kanye. Where it's like, damn, like he was such a good person, and then he wasn't. So what I realized in the past couple of years since that Kanye thing is just like you can't put all your faith in like one person is the savior of hip hop, one person is your favorite artist, because. If you put too much into that and then they disappoint you, it just breaks your heart.
I like that. Like that. That makes you, like the thing you said about Lady Gaga, where you felt this emotion and you were sober too. Yeah. I've had that happen to me once. Once sober, once not sober. And it's, I'm probably like the opposite of you. Like I don't have this huge inclination towards like music. It's like I just sometimes I go days without listening to music because I'll be listening to podcasts, because I'll be listening to like audiobooks. That's more my religion. So I've never felt too musically inclined. I'm also tone deaf.
Hey, you karaoke a lot for a tone deaf guy.
Oh, I'm just confident. That's where I'm going after this. Oh, I really am. But I had this moment where I was at the gym and I had just worked out, and I remember where I was. I was at LA Fitness, and I was in the locker room, and I was listening to Kendrick's album, the Not Mad Kid. It was To Pimp a Butterfly. Okay. And I got to Blacker the Berry, and there's just this moment at the end of the song where the whole time he tells you, he's like, oh, I'm a hypocrite and this, and like just going through the story of like kind of like not respecting, but about black culture and like, being black. And then at the end, he talks about how like he killed someone who was just as black, and it just like hit me in this weird way. It's never happened to me with any other song, any other music, where like I felt like, oh, I can kind of like understand what he's saying. Like I really understood like this song and like the moral behind it, and and it felt like this like window opened up, and I could like peek into like another person's perspective and be like, oh shit, like I really understand right now. And that's never happened with anything else. But it was
exactly the feeling.
It was so strong. Like I was like, whoa. And from that day, I'm like, I'm a Kendrick fan. Like I literally like listen to everything.
It like unlocks like a new way of thinking, kind of.
It really does.
Just because you got to listen to that song.
So we were speaking about God, right? As far as like music terms, I think it's interesting that you brought up like Kanye. Like, oh yeah, you try to like this guy, but he makes it kind of hard. Because for years now, I've always thought this, where you gotta kind of separate the musician's work from the musician sometimes. Yeah. Because they're human beings, and we chalk them up to be like these great people, and then something happens, Chris Brown beats Rihanna or something like that. And you're just like, holy cow, like how do I back this person up? Yeah. But at the same time, like if you look at their body of work without being biased towards what they're doing as a person, you realize it's still good. But sometimes you see how much of influence that has on people's taste. They'll be like, oh, I'm the biggest fan of this, and then something bad happens in the news, and they're like, fuck that, I hate their music,
Yeah.
and it changes their whole perspective.
It's really conflicting. Yeah, it's the hard thing to do is when you care a lot about the whole picture. Like it's still the same thing. Like I still can't help but sometimes put on a Kanye song because those songs are still amazing.
Yeah.
And it's tough to like to be the person that's like, well, but at the same time you see where it's coming from. So for me, it's really hard to make that separation. And I want to, because there'd be a lot more things that I would enjoy if I could just do that. Yeah. But it's too hard. Like, and I totally understand that perspective too.
Yeah.
Like,
plus you have an audience, and sometimes they don't understand that. I mean, we book a lot of DJs, right? So one of the common things is like, oh, what happens to this certain artist, and now can I play his music anymore? It's a very common topic. Yeah. So R. Kelly was like in the midst of discussion in like 2020, 2019. They're like, shit, I guess we can't play like any of the
Ignition.
R. Kelly's Ignition anymore, but that's like a banger. And even for a minute, it was like Michael Jackson too, and that's like years after all that stuff after he had passed. People are like, oh, should I not play? And again, if you separate the work of art, like that is their music, aside from their personality, their being, then you should be able to enjoy what they put out. But some people, they just want to boycott the artist as a whole. Yeah,
and it's and that's where it's like it's tough to make that call, like because honestly, like I've done the research, because there was a time where I was that person where I was like, I only want to listen to people that are morally good or whatever. Yeah. And you do the research and you're like, oh, then I can't listen to shit.
No one.
You can't listen to anything.
Especially in hip hop. In that culture, there's a lot of fucked up things. Just think about what they talk about in hip hop. You know what I mean,
even the classic rock and roll gods, they all like, oh, they were dating 16-year-olds, all this shit.
Yeah,
like, what
it's fucked. It's fucked. And you just realize, you never really started listening to these people because like they're morally righteous. It's because of their music and the way they portray themselves, and usually as badasses from back in the day when we were kids and we didn't understand what they were potentially really doing and the effects of what they were doing. But now as like adults, we're like, holy fuck, that's some crazy ass shit. Yeah. Like if we were talking about like Africa Bambaataa, if you ever heard about what happened with that.
Don't get into details because you might get kicked off YouTube.
Wait, I don't know.
Oh man. So I mean, I won't go into too many details, and if you guys want to go down that rabbit hole, just look up what happened to him and the history of hip hop, right? That's like where most of that originated from, right? Like Kool Herc and all that. Yeah. And basically a lot of people don't know that Africa Bambaataa had done some, well, you could blur it out, but like pedophilia stuff. Yeah. And then because he was like basically like a ringleader with a lot of like the hip hop crowd back then when it was starting, he would like molest like little boys who were getting into the scenes. Yeah, it was pretty bad. Yeah. And it gets bad because like a lot of the people involved in the hip hop scene kind of turned a blind eye. And they still don't talk about it till today.
Yeah, I never heard about it.
Yeah, it was huge. It was gigantic. But again, you just think about it, like that scene and those scenes where it started with young ass people, in music. It started with young kids basically, and you expect these kids to be like morally right, but they're children, and then you idolize them. And then you put them in the scene so young to be idolized that they can't build a consciousness on their own. They're always like under scrutiny. So sometimes behind closed doors they do shit where it's kind of like, holy fuck. Yeah. And then you realize that they're just flawed human beings, and sometimes more so than others.
And it's tough when the culture kind of supports it. Like the culture supports the kind of the reckless behavior sometimes. Yeah. Like you could see it even here in Orange County. There's certain popular people that are, because of the headlines they're trying to make, not because of like the actual music, just because they're like doing crazy shit,
Yeah. No, I see that because like at least like the hiding in, some people know, because I remember listening to someone was talking about like, hey, people knew about R. Kelly. People knew about, like, you have the whole skits from like Dave Chappelle from back in the day, and people knew about Bill Cosby too, which is like, not exactly the same thing, but like there's always people who know, and like they hide it, and what it is, it's comedians who sometimes like make those jokes and then people take it seriously.
Yeah, it was an open secret.
Yeah, that's tough though, especially if someone involved, like let's say you knew these people but you weren't directly involved in what they had to do, and somehow because of your affiliation they want you to speak out on it, especially if it's about Icon. Like that's I'm not saying I would not do it. I'm pretty sure I would, but it would take a lot of scrutiny for me to be like, yeah, let me open up about this person. Yeah, you gotta do this.
Let me throw them under the bus real quick.
Because it's also, the stigma of, I guess, snitching in general.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know, like it's where do you draw that line?
Yeah.
Right? Because in the culture, you're like, nah, don't snitch.
Don't snitch.
But now in today's like cancel culture, it's like if you don't say anything, you're
Part
a
of the
culprit
problem,
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even look at that whole Megan Thee Stallion thing where like she didn't snitch out even though she got shot in the fucking foot.
That's
And
crazy.
it didn't like escalate till like way later where it's like, oh, you know, people are saying she's a liar. People are like, oh no, she's, you know, it's not true, whatever.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. And the whole time it was fucking true. Like you had the audio. Like, did you guys hear like the audio?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's hard to separate the art from the artist because the only people that were saying that Megan Thee Stallion was lying were because they were fans of Tory Lanez's music.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
Dude, that's tough.
if you ever go into the comments of some of these like, you know, posts or whatever, I'm like, the people there are like, dude, who are you? Like, it's just like a cesspool. I'm like, it is so toxic. Like, I get that you love an artist and stuff, but I'm like, damn, like,
Yeah.
And it's two extremes. It's like either you ride or die for them no matter what, or you at the drop of a hat, you're like, fuck this person. It's like it's better just to be in the middle, enjoy stuff while that you can.
That's the difference between like an obsessed fan and a person who's just like a regular fan.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
or haters.
or haters. You know, complete opposite side of the coin. But you know, you also have the point where it's like you're a fan of someone and you do want to believe that they didn't do something. Like a case in point would be Rex OC.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, all the allegations got dropped because they reviewed the footage of him and he actually didn't do anything. Yeah. But a lot of people like. Actually, Vin here, like I played Rex OC, and he was like, "Fuck that guy." He did all this before any real proof was out. Yeah. And as men, it's a lot harder for us because your image could be completely destroyed because not everyone follows up on shit. You know what I mean? It could easily be like, "Fuck this guy," and then the news drops that all the allegations have been dropped. But let's say I never saw that. I'm in my mind, I'm still like, fuck this guy. Yeah. Right? And I could easily spread that. I could tell the next person, oh, yeah, you didn't hear you did this with the fans. So fuck this guy, too. And it just continues to spread. And that's really fucked up.
And that's one of the things that I was scared of, like, that's going to happen to anybody. Like, you get a little bit of, like, any kind of, like, platform, and they're like, oh, well, you did this that one time. And you're like, whoa.
Yeah, dude.
That's the cancel culture. So I got to ask, you've been... What, 7-8 years now, right?
8 years, yeah.
Have you gotten any haters?
Yeah, once or twice. Like, honestly, people, they get mad when, I think the only haters are when you say, oh, I'm sorry, like, you can't be on the show. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, fuck your show.
Really?
Every time that I try to be, like, diplomatically, like, hey, this isn't a fit for our show, because there's some music to us. Yeah. It's always like, well, you're just mad because I'm successful. And I was like, oh, wow. That makes no sense.
Oh.
All right, question. R. Kelly wants to be on your show.
I wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do it.
Wow.
There's a difference between like he's in jail. Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? If it was somebody that like they had allegations and there was like, okay, like I didn't do it or something. Like, there was a conversation to be had.
Tory Lanez wants to be on your show.
Tory Lanez, another one. He got convicted, right? He was found guilty. So it's like, well, guilty. You did it.
He's on bail, right?
For now, right?
He's on bail. He hits you up. He's like, yo, I want to come on your show, Cesar. What do you say?
He's so torn right now.
I'd be like, could we talk about could we talk about it? If we could talk about it, then yes. But if you're just gonna pretend that nothing happened and you'll be like, well, here's my single, I'd be like, no. Like, let's have a real conversation and be like, well, why did you do all this shit to say this person was like? I'd be interested in having that conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
But some people like there's a line. I guess like the only people I'd say no to are Kelly, like Bill Cosby, stuff like or Harvey Weinstein. Those kind of people where you're like, you're a monster.
You get those calls, Cesar. Oh, we want to be on the show.
Harvey's really down.
So I want to talk about something. You just mentioned it earlier. Like the haters are usually the people you turn away, and they're like, "Fuck your show. This shit sucks anyways." Or like, "Oh yeah, I'm too big for you anyways." Yeah. I've noticed that kind of behavior. And are they all like males?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I noticed that behavior is very similar to males who try to like pick up women. Mm-hmm. You know, so let's say a guy reaches out in the DMs and he's like, "Oh, I think you're so beautiful," and she's like, "No, thank you, I'm not interested." And the guy would be like,
anyways.
"Yeah, you're fucking ugly anyways. Well, you're fat. I don't even like you." And I'm curious how, because psychology is everything to me, right? So I'm always curious as to why people do that. What do you guys think?
From the experience that I've had with people like that, it's like they can't in their head comprehend there's anything wrong with them. So they have to manipulate the situation to be like, well, you're wrong anyway, you know? And I feel like that's what it's like the thing where you can't really like, you can't make anything, you just can't see yourself. There's no self-awareness.
I think it's that too, but I also think it's kind of the opposite, where let's say you try and put yourself out there, you try and hit on this woman, and she rejects you, and your attempt is tied to your self-worth. It's tied to how, like, you know, confident or self-conscious you are. So having that rejection affects you in that way. Be like, damn, what is wrong with me? Like, why is this person saying no? And you lash out, be like, because you're trying to like find a way to like save the situation. Be like, okay, whatever, you're ugly anyway. They don't want it because you're hurt. So you lash out.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I agree.
Why do you guys think it's mainly males who do it?
Because it's mostly males who are the pursuers. You know, at least that's what that's what I assume is majority of the culture.
I'm curious now, because like if a girl pursues you and you reject her, is she like, well, you're fucking gay? You know what I mean?
That's happened to me. Yeah.
What?
Like, back in the day, like before I was married, like there's people that I've rejected and they're like, well, they get mad at me. And I'm like, well, then why did you even try to get with me in the first place? Like,
Wow.
what?
So it has happened to you. You've experienced that on the opposite side.
What did they say to you?
It was like, oh, well, I didn't want to. You're fucking like you said, you're ugly. Like, oh, I didn't even like you anyway. I was just, and I'm like, well, then what are we doing talking right now? Like, what was this?
That's gnarly. Okay, I've never experienced that, or at least to my face. You know, maybe to my back. But.
Did they say it to your face? What did they say to you?
Yeah, homegirl was mad. She was like, well, I fucking hate you. And I'm like,
I fucking hate you.
Well, I think it was a little bit of alcohol involved. You know what
Oh,
I'm
okay.
saying? And
Damn, that's still
it's like, if you're a real man, you make out with me right now. And I'm like,
whoa.
And it was, and then at that point, I was like, you know what? Like, if you at that point, I'm like, well, now I'm kind of attracted to you, but no.
Out of all the other encounters, is it usually pretty normal when girls approach you?
Honestly, like that approach was like one of a handful of times. Like, I've only, in terms of like dating, I feel like I'm clueless because I've only ever been in long relationships. In the few times that I was single in between, there was like stuff like that, but like only like once or twice.
Yeah, let's since you are the guest today and not the actual host, tell us a little bit about your dating experience before marriage.
It was non-existent. I mean, it was just like I would I would just, you know, pursue somebody that I liked, and if it worked out, I'd be with them for a long time. And it was like with people that like mutual friends, then you talk a little bit, and then it just became natural. Like it was when I did that, it was like the beginning of like online, but it wasn't online. It was like just texting each other, and then that's how you get to know people. So it was very limited. Like I was like, I'm glad that I didn't have to use apps, because I would be like, and even the other day I was like at a bar and I was like, if I was single and I was like trying to talk to somebody, I wouldn't even know where to start.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Honestly, like, how do you even do that? Like, I'm only comfortable in this microphone situation.
You carry a little mic with you when you go to the bar.
Yeah, I'm gonna interview you.
How old were you when you got married?
It was in 2019, so it was only
right before the pandemic.
Yeah, right before. We got lucky. We got married in Joshua Tree in April of 2019. And we went to Coachella for a honeymoon. We got married on Thursday.
That's cool.
We got married on a Thursday and convenienced everybody. And then I was like, well, if you want to be there, you'll be there. Yeah, and then we went to Coachella that weekend.
Wait, so how old were you?
So I'm 30 now, so I was 27.
27. And you guys were together for how long?
We were together for 2 years, so now we've been together since 2015, so 7 years.
So I actually knew his wife before.
Oh, really?
I knew Carla because she was friends with one of my friends from college, Kathy. And we had like partied together, and like I like met her here and there. And then when I'm like, you're getting married, I was like, whoa.
Was that before you knew Cesar?
That's before I knew Cesar.
Yeah.
Oh,
we only started
small
talking a couple years ago.
Yep.
In the music scene.
And she works with you?
So we started working together. We used to work at the gelato store. So that's how I met her. Was we were friends, and she was a manager, and then we started dating.
Dang the manager.
She made the move.
He likes when women tell him what to do.
You got all the good shifts.
At that point, it was super, like, I didn't want to, be inappropriate. So she asked me out, and then, we try to keep it a secret as long as possible. And then they found out, and they're like, well, have we messed up? Like, have you seen us not act, respectful to the business? And they said no, like, and so it was, they were cool with us working together.
Nice.
Eventually we became like, at that point when they discovered it, we were already at the same level. So there wasn't any, like we already kind of shared the responsibilities anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I never wanted to be like inappropriate in the workplace. And so, but it was all super respectful too.
Yeah, super respectful.
In case Gelato Purdy's is watching this episode.
I don't work there anymore, but I just want to be respectful to the whole thing.
No, that's totally different. I've heard some dudes, whenever they like get into a relationship inside of like, especially a food workplace, some disrespectful shit, man.
Yeah, dude.
Like
There's-
people pounding on pretzels. That's
Oh,
not with
sure.
their hands,
Yeah.
you know. I'm like, fuck, it's kind of crazy.
Sounds like you're kind of friends.
Hey, yeah, sorry.
and I mean, even yeah, I mean, when I became the manager, like you know, in other places that I worked at, not gelato, we'll say there was guys that you'd hire, and I'm like, dude, you're not here to look for a girlfriend. Like you're here to
Yeah.
work, and you have to let those people go or tell them not to cross no lines. You
Yeah.
know, like it's crazy. People don't care.
Yeah. So I'm gonna talk about this because I have a lot. I was in the food industry for a bit, and as a server, and I noticed a lot of my friends would date each other, and I would talk to servers from other like restaurants, and that would be a very common theme. How much do you think working together plays a role in people getting together, whether it's like hookups or relationships?
It's a major part. I mean, if you're working a full-time job or you're working even 20 hours a week, you're getting to know a lot of people there.
Yeah.
And it's a great opportunity to meet friends, but then it's also, you know, if it naturally develops into something more, then like you're lucky that you got to meet somebody where you work at.
I noticed that that's very common for people to get in relationships with their coworkers, for one, but also very common for people to act, to be the stuff they do that's like infidelity wise is always with coworkers.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I have a friend she was with her guy 5 years,
Yeah.
and he started acting weird. He's been acting weird for like 2 weeks or something.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "I'm sorry, I cheated," and it was with the
Damn.
coworker.
You know who started that? Bill Clinton. he started that whole thing,
Hot
dude.
take.
He started that whole thing, dude.
Once they saw him, they're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, if Bill Clinton can do it, fuck, why not me? Because you hear it all the time, and I'm just shocked. It happens even in the most professional settings. You're talking about a gelato store, you know, like we could be talking about doctors and lawyers who do that.
Dude,
And that's
NBA
insane.
head coaches.
Yeah, it's probably the time that they spend with the person plays a big role.
And if you're already looking for something like that, like if you're already like not getting the attention at home and then somebody else is filling you up that way, like I can see how that would happen.
Yeah.
And I think it's all about communicating with your partner. Like, hey, I'm not feeling the love right now. And because if you don't communicate, then it builds into like, well, like you're kind of growing apart from that person. And then that's how it's easy to just be like, oh, I'm going to hook up with my coworker.
So what do you think about people who work a lot?
Work a lot.
Yeah,
I mean,
let's say they're in a relationship, they work a lot. So like the person that you spend the most time with is a coworker.
well, I mean, I think that it's as long as you're taking care of your partner's needs and they respect that you have to work and there's no like tension for that, then I think you can be successful. But it's all about like communicating that.
Yeah.
Like even myself, I don't think that the part-time job that I have now, I'm not there all the time, but I would say I'm fully working all the time on everything else that I do, like the podcast I produce or the Rodriguez show. So with me and Carla, it's like she knows that I have to get these things done and she respects that. And so it's up to her and I to talk about, well, are we paying enough attention to each other? And when that's not happening, that's when you need to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And that's the only way you can prevent like, you know, the infidelity or like, you know, not, or just even breaking apart like that is just open communication and letting them know how you feel.
So it seems like from what I'm getting from you is that you have a good communication style. You seem like you have a good ability to understand your partner, you know? When did you know that it was her? You know, when did you know it was like, this is the girl that like I'm going to marry?
I mean, it's just over time, like when we started dating, it was like, it just was so natural. And it's when you know, that's when you know, it's like, well, you're not trying to be somebody else. You're not nervous about, oh, they're going to find out who I really am. And you're like, you know, I didn't have to pretend to be somebody else with you because I was just your coworker and your friend. Yeah. And you've seen me like make fun of you and stuff like that. I think that's where it's also the coworker thing, because you're not really going in there thinking like, oh, I have to impress somebody. Whether it's like where if you meet somebody for the first time on a first date, you have all these like, well, I want to present myself a certain way.
Yeah.
And at work, there's only so many hours that you can do that before you just be yourself.
Is there a moment that you decided was like, I'm going to ask this girl to marry me? Was there something that happened? Was it natural progression?
It was natural progression. It was just because I was in a relationship in the past where that person was like, I would marry you. And it was like, I didn't feel that at all. And I was like, whoa, like that's where you start feeling bad. And so when I was with Carla, it was like, oh, like I want to be with this person. There's no doubt. And I consider myself a person that overthinks everything they do. Oh, really? So when the thought of like, I'm going to marry Carla, like it was just like, yeah, it's going to happen. Like this is what I decided to do. There's no second guessing.
During the pandemic, it was a case where a lot of people either got divorced or a lot of people got together, right? I'm assuming you probably saw Carla a lot more than you did prior, being that you were like you had to be isolated.
Well, actually, during the pandemic, she was a flight attendant. And she wasn't home a lot. That was hard because of the opposite, because we didn't see each other as much. And she left the gelato store to become a flight attendant for a few years. And so, after that, it was tough for her because when they do that to you, you get hired and they're like, okay, you work for this company. Now we're going to put you in this city. It doesn't matter where you're from, where you came from. We're going to put you over here. Yeah. And so for somebody like her that already had a life here, and it's tough for me too, because it wasn't like, okay, let's move together, because I'm already so attached to this area, So it was a really tough time. And it ultimately, there was a lot of things that went into it. The way people treated flight attendants at the time during the pandemic. Yeah. Played it, and then she left that life just because it was too crazy.
What would you say is one of the worst stories that you've heard from her as a flight attendant?
There's been a lot of cursing at her, and to her coworkers. Like, she's lucky where it hasn't gotten anything physical. Yeah. And so there's people that overflow toilets, just stuff like that. Oh, but the story, her personal experience was just not. It wasn't like, hey, what I'm trying to say. She watched the videos of that, and she could feel the tension of people being angry. There, it's like, this could pop off any minute. So I don't want to get into that to that point, And so that's what led her to leave. It wasn't like something horrible happened. It was a collection of the tension from it.
Yeah. You're anxious every day. Like, this could potentially happen this day that I'm going into my work.
During that time, a lot of people were getting COVID. So then people would call out from a flight, and then there's people waiting hours sitting there on the plane, and then they're pissed, and then you're the only one they see, and they're going to take that anger out on
people
somebody.
Who don't want to wear their masks, and then you got to tell them, because that's the guideline of the airline.
How did you guys maintain your relationship those years when she had to she was I think she worked in Dallas, right?
She trained in Dallas, and then she went to Chicago, and that's where she lived for a long time. And I would visit as often as I could because we get free flights.
Sick.
So we take a lot of trips. It wasn't hard to maintain. It was just a lot of more extra work, going out of our way to me going on trips and stuff like that. Yeah. And then her too, making it work. She could sometimes come home for a day or two, and the fact that she was willing to do that was that helped a lot. So I give credit to her because I just got to enjoy the trips. She was the one living the life of going, not being in one location all the time. Yeah. How do you establish a routine?
Oh my God, you were a sugar baby.
I worked.
Pulling out to every city.
Exactly.
You know what? I just found out recently that flight attendants don't get paid until they get onto the plane.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, until they're flying.
Yeah, so they're flying. So even when you're setting everything up, you don't get paid. And if there's a layover, you don't get paid. No. So you're stuck in a city for X amount of hours and you don't get paid, even though you're not home. And any other job, if you're on the job and while you're not physically working but you have to travel for it, you get paid.
Yeah.
Overnight, if anything, double time, triple time, whatever it is. But flight attendants don't.
There was days where she'd be like, you're on call for 12 hours, but you're not getting paid unless you get called.
Yeah.
So you have to stay at home for 12 hours being ready to be called, but you don't get paid if you don't get called.
Oh, that's messed up.
Yeah, because I used to think flight attendants made bank because of that reason. Because I'm like, okay, you fly, let's say to New York, 5 hours. You have a 10-hour layover, so you chill for 10 hours and you're making money. And then you fly back another 5 hours. Okay, cool. You just had 20 hours worth of your shift in a day or something. I was like, that's pretty tight. But now finding out that they only get paid, those long layovers just seem like a waste of time.
Well, people try to make the best of it, they go explore the city, but sometimes it's you're in the middle of nowhere doing nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Was she a traveling person before?
Yeah. She went to one of the things, the coolest things she did the Machu Picchu trail.
Oh shit, nice.
That was amazing. So she would try to be adventurous like that.
Okay, so she was already like that prior to
even we would take trips as much as we could.
Yeah, nice. Were you a traveling person prior?
Not at all. Not at
all.
Honestly, my eyes opened up. My world changed when I went to Thailand.
We're going there in November.
Yo, you are?
Nice. Yeah, for a bachelor party.
Oh, whoa.
It's gonna be 20, 25 dudes and another 50 lady boys. Wait, so you went to Thailand with her?
Yeah, I went to Thailand with her, and I had never been outside of North America, basically.
Oh, wow.
Did you guys go to a ping pong show?
No, we did not. We went to a strip club in there, and it was just depressing. It was.
Oh wow!
It was if they were on display, like a rotisserie chicken.
Yeah.
It was this doesn't feel comfortable. It's not fun. It's not fun. Mm-hmm. I did see, people that were lady boys. Is that
Yeah.
proper term?
That is the proper
Scientific term.
But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is, we did it on flights that were standby, so there was never a guarantee that we were gonna get on this flight. So we might have had to sleep in the airport. And I was like, I'm in a country where I don't know the language. I was so nervous, but once we got there and back, I was like, I can do anything now. I was ready to explore more. And we did take a few trips here or there, but that was like the biggest one.
So what was your take on Thailand?
I mean, it's just a whole different world, but it's not any, like, it's just different. Like, I can't really compare it to how it is here. Obviously, it's not like they're like in a third world. It's not a third world country. They have a lot of the stuff that we do. It's just so, I don't know. It's a different lifestyle over there. And honestly, like, to be fair, I was only in like the island that was kind of catered to like tourists. So it wasn't like I got to see like, the day-to-day life.
Were you in Phuket?
Koh Samui?
Koh Samui. So yeah, Koh Samui. Crazy ass times there. I mean, everything was just like nuts there. First day, one of my friends falls off like one of the bikes.
Oh no.
The Airbnb loses its water and electricity. And then we check into the hostel the next day. And I'll kind of go over the mosquito story really briefly, but I had to take a fat shit. And like the only restroom at the hostel is the one on the lobby area, right? So I go in there, and it's just like a last minute hostel, so it's not like we knew how it was. So I go in there, I look, and there's a bunch of mosquitoes like everywhere. No. I don't know if you've ever seen that scene from scary movies, but the priest or the father, he sits down, there's like a bunch of flies like him. That's what it was, but mosquitoes. Yeah, at that time I was like, fuck, what do I do? Either I like took a shit on the fucking floor, or like I sit down on the bowl and there's a bunch of them there. I'm like, fuck it. If I'm going to take a shit, I'm going to shit on the bowl, and I'm going to take these guys down with me. Right? So I take a dookie. I look at the bowl. These mosquitoes are all dead, right? It's like it's a nuclear explosion. They're done. But I get up, and I'm like, oh, my God, my ass hurts. I go to the mirror where the hostel was. We had like our own room because we booked all the beds, and my ass was like 2 sizes bigger. That shit was crazy. I did not do any squats on that trip either. That shit was just gnarly.
Walking around all thick.
Yeah, dude, I was hella thick at that time. But then, so I look outside of our hostel room, and there's like a window and a balcony. And next to the balcony, there is another rooftop, which is probably like this far over, this gap right here. So back then, I used to love doing photography that was a little bit risky. I don't know what's a better term for it, but it would always involve some kind of risk because it always makes you feel alive. Yeah. So I was like, with my homie Adam, hey, why don't you jump over there? I'll take some pictures of you on this roof. So he jumps over. I go over too. I'm taking pictures of him, and my homie Henry, he's not a big guy.
He's a big guy.
But he's a little bit bigger than us. He's not a big guy. He's buff now, though. Buff Henry.
He's thick.
Yeah, no, that dude is thick.
He's not buff Henry. He's thick Henry.
So he's like, ooh, I want some pictures too. So he hops over. He takes one step and falls through the fucking roof. Falls through the roof. And so the shingles or the roofing, whatever you call it, was fiberglass. And he just stepped through one where it wasn't like layered over each other, and he just fell right through. No. At first, we freaked out because we're like, holy fucking shit, that's a tall fall. Yeah. So you look through, and he's like, and we're like, Henry, you right? He's like, and I'm like, all right, he's right. And then we just start busting out laughing because it's kind of a funny story. Yeah. So then we're like, oh shit, we should go check on him. So we go downstairs, we go around, and it's the next building next to the hostel, right? We're next door. So you go in, and I have no idea what this building is. As I'm walking through it, I'm like, oh, a burlesque boutique. Oh, a transgender burlesque boutique. I'm like, what is going on? And as I walk through the door, I'm greeted by, I guess the correct term is this lady with the biggest like boobs ever, right? Yeah. But the most masculine face. But and I'm just like, holy shit! If this is what I think this is fucking hilarious. Yeah. So she's like, "What are you doing? Where are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, one of my friends, he fell through the roof." And she was like, "What? She started freaking out. I was like, "Where is the back room? Like next to the hostel?" So we go to the back room. We go all the way to the back, and we see Henry. He's still laying there. And I was like, I was curious at first, like how he wasn't like, severely hurt. Mm-hmm. And I look at him. He's on a bed of wigs.
What?
It's wigs he used to get ready. And he fell through the
On
roof
the wig.
on a bed of wigs. What are the chances? That's fucking crazy. And then you see all these ladies getting ready. You know, they have their makeup on. The weird part is like I don't know why they're always topless. That was the strange part. It's like why not wear a bra or something? But anyways. They all freak out and they're like, "Is this your friend? Like, what's going on?" And Henry gets up and he's like, "Fuck this shit. Let's go. Fuck this shit." So we're like, "Okay." So we go and we run out, and as they're like kind of like trying to chase after us, we're like, "Oh shit, let's split." So we get out of the building and I think two of us go to the left and one of us go to the right, and we just like take off and we split and we like hide kind of like far away, and then we call each other and we're like, "Hey, we should go back to the hostel." And I think it was like probably maybe 20 minutes after. So we figured maybe they don't know where it came from. But they figured out because the only way to get to the roof is from the hostel. So we go to the hotel lobby and they all come there. And this big, I think he was Russian, big Russian dude comes. And he's like, "You owe me money. You need to pay for like all these things." And we're like, "Oh shit, it's the owner." And you learn that a lot, that a lot of the places in Thailand are owned by foreigners. Mm-hmm. Especially Russian people. I don't know why. But so he's asking for a fat amount of money for fiberglass like roofing, right? I think it was $400 US, and we knew that was way too much. Mm-hmm. And as he's like yelling at us and saying that he's gonna call the cops and all these things, our hostel person, the one who checked us in, he backed us up. He was like, "No, that's too much. You're ripping off my clients. There's no way. We'll go to the store and we'll pay for it and have it done. And you'll see it's going to be a lot less." Yeah. And then the guy backed off. No. And they got taken care of, and we got fixed for like I think it was $100 versus
wow.
like $400. Yeah,
what a story!
Dude, but it was crazy.
It sounds like something out of a movie. You know?
I know. It
you
felt
should make
like
a TV show about your life, dude.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff was crazy. I was just like, how could this be happening? How am I witnessing this? This is just too hilarious. That's just like one of like the bunch of things that happens in Thailand.
Typically on the show, we like to ask, like, do you have any crazy dating stories?
Yeah, I mean, that's something I do not.
I know, that's what I figured. I was like,
I was thinking that too. I had that feeling like, no, it's gonna be very mellow. It's
always
gonna be
had
very chill.
Very chill dating life, I guess.
So then we'll take it the other way. Do you have any crazy podcast stories?
No, I mean, it's only ever been like positive, crazy, like stuff where you're like, oh damn, I'm so glad I caught this, right? Like we've had opportunities where somebody busts a freestyle and then they just keep going for like 8 minutes and you're like, this is amazing.
Oh shit!
And you're just like, keep doing it, man. You know, and then in terms of like, you know, stuff that we've done ourselves, like we did a rap battle once. It was me and my co-host. We did a rap battle against each other.
Oh wow!
And I thought I did a great job, and I still lost that thing.
What? Really? Wait, who was the judge?
The judge was our so it was Specs. He's a rapper in Santa Ana.
Yeah.
And then it was like two people that are friends but of the show as well.
Okay, got it.
And it was BTE was my coach for the rap battle.
Really?
And I still lost.
You know what's so funny? We were actually thinking about doing something similar. Because we've had B on the show, and we were gonna do we're gonna have some of the guests on the show be like our like co-trainers and be like, okay, like Rocky trains Peter, B trains me, and then me and Peter like battle against each other as like a little like, you know, fun little segment or something. Yeah. But you guys already did it. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, we've done everything under the, like we've had like. You know, we did the dating game where couples on Valentine's Day, they come and answer questions about each other and they have to guess which ones correctly. There was a couple, they were so in sync, they got every single question right.
Whoa.
And it's like, even I wouldn't know like everything about Carla like that, where it's like, damn.
I mean, I know everything about Peter, so like.
Sure, same Mario.
Oh, okay, so I have one. Oh, bad one. Not, you know, just a catastrophic.
Whoa.
I mean, I built it up too much. So there's this experiment where there's this thing called the 30 questions you ask people to fall in love.
Oh. Yeah.
Right. And I wanted two people to do that. So I got my friend and then a guy that she found on Tinder to do it on the podcast.
Did they meet during that time?
Like through Tinder just for the hey, like, come do this with me.
Yeah.
So they did the whole thing. And the guy actually really liked the girl after that, but she didn't feel the same way.
Oh.
And then
so he fell in love.
He fell in love.
Oh shit!
But she did not. Oh. And I just felt bad because that whole episode got deleted right away. Like,
what?
So a homie came through to like do the whole thing, and he fell in love with this girl, and I was like, well, at least he's gonna be on a podcast, and that didn't even happen for him either.
Wait, why not?
The hard drive crashed on me.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was like a total waste of time for the
So you
guy.
got to redo it.
I got to do it again.
I volunteer as tribute.
You want to do it?
Yeah, I'm down. Hell yeah.
You gotta do
it.
You might fall in love.
Do you remember? So I've seen the game online on YouTube or something. But do you remember what some of the questions are? Because it would be cool for our audience to know, and maybe they could play the game themselves too.
Yeah, it was like, what was the reason you last cried? And so that gets you to open up to somebody right away. Or like, what would you be doing right now if you could do anything in the world? So you really get to know the person like behind, like, they're not going to tell you fake shit. They're going to tell you like real shit.
Is it always supposed to work with strangers?
I think it works better with strangers. Because if you already have those stories and you're not building that connection, it's about feeling that connection like slowly. And then by the end of it, you're like opening up to each other.
Yeah.
It's supposed to end with 15 minutes of intense eye contact.
15
Oh,
minutes?
I've heard
Wait,
of
as in they
this.
can't talk, or they just...
They can't. You just have to stare at each other for 15 minutes.
That's hard.
Yeah.
15 minutes.
So I left the room when that happened.
Really?
Yeah. And I've seen it like on YouTube. People like they get really emotional.
Yeah,
Like,
I saw one where it was at least two people, and they trap them in a box together.
what?
Yeah, it's like in a box. So they sit in a box, and they just like get to know each other, and they just talk about whatever's. And sometimes they'll just be quiet because I think it's sometimes for like 14 hours or something
Is
like
this
that.
the 2 kids in the sandbox thing?
No, they
14
definitely were not
hours?
trapped. Yeah, insane.
Yeah.
Insane. But those experiences it's kind of interesting because they get to go through like a phase that some couples don't until they like live together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's why going back to, the pandemic, there was a lot of like people who got divorced because they weren't together to that extent where they would spend like all day and all night, and the only people they saw were each other. And then they learned like, holy shit, like I can't do this.
Yeah. I mean, in my case, I was lucky because when Carla and I worked together, we would see each other all day, and then afterwards we'd hang out all day.
Yeah.
So then her flying was like the complete opposite. I was like, oh dang, what am I supposed to do all day now? And then it's hard for you to find a rhythm too, because you're like, okay, well, like I usually do this on these days, but then Carla's only going to be in town on these days, so it's like I'm going to change what I'm doing. So it's not like it's not work to be in a relationship, but it's like when you really care about the person, you're happy to make it work.
Yeah, of course. You gotta make them like a priority.
What do you think is her best qualities? What is it that like resonates with you the most?
Her kindness and her patience.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things where I can come and be like, well, I hate this person because this and this. And like, well, what about? Well, why don't you think of it this way? Like, where they're coming at it from this, and I'm like, wow, I didn't even think of it.
Yeah.
And she always does that, where she always makes me think of things in a different way, where it just balances so well. And then also she's hilarious.
Carla is funny.
Yeah. She's starting to do not stand up, improv.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Takes a different kind of balls to do improv.
Yeah, we've been talking about it. We have our own podcast now, me and her. We've been doing it for almost a year.
Oh,
where
nice.
it's kind of like a advice podcast. So
Okay.
we look up who's the asshole scenarios on Reddit, and then we read them. And discuss them.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
so
that's interesting.
Those are fun. So yeah, it's cool to be able to work with somebody you love on a project like that. Like it just brings you. Now she sees like my world of podcasting.
It seems like you guys are very like interconnected, and you're able to work together too, and like hang out and see each other day, which is like not something every couple can do.
Yeah.
What ways do you think, besides what you just said right now, what ways do you think she's made you better?
Being around me, like it makes me want to improve what I'm doing in a good way.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, like I didn't used to take care of myself as much because I didn't really like, I went through a lot of like depression when I was in college, trying to figure out who I was. And I still have those bouts of like here and there, because it's not just a struggle. It's always a struggle. I'm saying it doesn't just go away. And so she's made me like want to like, not lean into those things and actually like get out of them and like try to live a better life, because we want to have a future together.
Yeah.
And it's not like, hey, she's the only reason I keep going, because that's not healthy either.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just another thing that adds to like, okay, like I want to create a life. And to have that partnership is just, it's incredible.
I was actually going to ask that, but yeah, you answered it for me. Yeah. No, I think it takes someone special to like help you see your own flaws and issues and everything, and want to work on them too. And not just like, latch onto this other person. Like this person's going to fix me. They're the answer to my issues. Like, no, I want to be good with this person. I want to grow and build with this person. So I'm going to work on myself and try and like whatever kind of shit I got going on, whether it's, mental health, physical, anything. Like I want to be better.
Yeah, I was just talking about this earlier today with Glover, and I was, I'm sure there's more to it, but I was thinking most relationships work in this way that succeed, right? It's either you guys are different and you guys have to work together to achieve like a different level of like to your relationship, or you guys complement each other, meaning like they have flaws, but that's not a flaw to the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll accept it.
Yeah.
Like if the person's like, I want you just to accept me as who I am, they have to find a person that's okay with those things.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're not okay, then they're gonna want to change it, right?
Yeah.
And then now you kind of have to like renegotiate like who you are and how much of yourself you're willing to compromise, right?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and I appreciate that sometimes because so we had for when we got married, I had brought a recorder with me so I could record everything that was happening in the wedding, and then the recorder crashed. But the only thing that I got was the ceremony, and so I listened back to the vows, and she one of the vows she said was like to like nurture my mind and like appreciate my mind, and I was like, I appreciate that you see that maybe I don't think like everybody else does, but at least you are patient with me and you kind of understand that I have a different perspective.
Yeah.
And so that's where it's like you said, it's like one of those things where we complement each other and you accept like, hey, they're different, but I like them for that.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about Carla too.
Do you remember your vows?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote them. We actually we were like, let's write our vows, and then we separately found the same template and just and I just said that I'm excited for all the cool shit that's gonna happen in our lives, and to have kids that we're gonna bully and shit like that, and just to support her in any way I can.
So usually, like I said earlier, we ask for your craziest dating stories, but I think we're gonna pivot when we have people who are married or like very in love and wholesome.
Sorry.
No. To instead, the question that we're gonna ask from now on is, tell us your most loving story with your partner.
So we always try to be creative with each other
Nice.
in terms of like the gifts that we give each other. Like I've done a bunch of radio shows where I have people like chime in about how great she is, and I just give her a whole radio show with a playlist about her. And then it's just it's not a big deal when I tell you, but it to me it's like you understand my love for pop culture. She did this thing where for an anniversary gift she got us drawn as the Simpsons. Like, and I was like, you get me so much. Like, this is exactly like what I would want. So just stuff like that where it's like, oh, you could have got me some like generic gift, but you went out of your way to make this artistic, and you threw in something that I love in there.
Yeah.
Like that's where it just feels so good.
Okay. Are you a gifting person in general?
Not really. Like I struggle now with that because I don't really give gifts to my friends like that. Like I'd rather make something for somebody that is worth, or like do something like make a cool video of that person.
Yeah.
So I'm not really that person. So even now, like making new gifts, it's only easy to do it for her.
Okay.
But it's not to anybody else.
Do you feel like you're a gifting person in other relationships too, or just her specifically?
Just her. In past relationships, there's been, I was like, they were like, why aren't you romantic enough? And I was like, you just don't understand. Like, I'm not that person,
Yeah.
But then with Carla, it's like, well, I want to make things to let her know that she's loved, so then I try.
I think that's what it is, though. Like, at least that's been my experience too. Where like, there's been relationships where I'm like completely like totally romantic and like go out of my way to like make sure the person feels loved and make sure that they're like, they know how I feel about them. And there's been other relationships where I'm like, I don't feel as like there, or I don't feel as like willing to like go out of my way to do these romantic things, And it's a part of me that's telling me like, hey, maybe there's not, this isn't the person for you. Maybe like you're not all in because like at the end of the day, like your instinct knows this isn't the person for you.
Yeah, I think deep down like and it's not till you know for sure about somebody else that you think back, you're like, oh damn, like I really didn't know, I really wasn't sure about myself with that person. You know? But you have to have that feeling first. You have to feel the ultimate feeling of love to know like what wasn't love before.
Yeah, that's interesting because some people just have the gift of giving. They're just able to give like a great gift every time to any person.
You mean like sugar daddies?
Well, that's just money. That's a little different. But yeah, I wouldn't say I'm good at gifting in general. Like I'm not really good at gifting things for my friends. The way I think about gifting, when I give my friends something, it's typically something that would like benefit their life. I'm like that boring gift giver, you know?
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, here's like a planner because you're so unorganized. Like,
Yeah.
shit like that. But I'm like,
You
that's
get your
good for
shit
you.
together.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
or here, oh, let's buy them a MacBook for school
Yeah.
or something like
Yeah.
that because they'll use it, or like a camera because they need a camera for work.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always like that kind of person. But I guess when I think about it, when I am in like a romantic relationship with my significant other, they're the only people that I don't give gifts that are just productive.
And you can do both. Like you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
no, of course. I also do that. I'll also give them that gift, also the
yeah.
productive gift. You know, oh, you said you want to vlog. Here's a vlog. I remember one of my exes. She was like, I really want to learn how to invest, and then I bought her like a Warren Buffett book, and I gave her like $100 as like a bookmark.
That's nice.
So that she could use
Yeah.
as her first like investment, which I don't know if it helps. Hopefully she's made a lot of money since the market's a little down. But
This year for Christmas, I got us a master class membership.
oh, dude,
yeah.
I've always wanted that. I always thought about it.
Dope.
Yeah, I have Skillshare, like the peasant version of Masterclass.
They do a deal every year where you buy one, you get one free.
Yeah. So you split with people. I always see it. People was like, oh, let's split the Masterclass. Who wants to split the Masterclass?
Yeah.
But I've always wanted it just because like the people they have on there is really cool.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
I want Carlos Santana to teach me how to play guitar.
Yeah,
I want
or-
Steph Curry to show me how to shoot.
Gordon Ramsay on cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
Yeah.
There's like Dead Mouse for producing, some other shit.
You know, 15 years and you've never given me a gift, Peter.
See, that's because Mario's self-sufficient. I can't think of anything
I
to
don't have a
make him
car.
more productive.
Give me a car.
No, I think it's better if you walk. That's why. Hey, your calves need some work, you know.
They really do.
Yeah, it's crazy how much you change for a person that you like care about. And don't get me wrong, I care about all the people that have given gifts to, but romantically it does change everything. Even your approach.
Yeah.
You know, the way I give my friends and family gifts, I'm like, here you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm a terrible like gift wrapper. Yeah, and I still am. I don't do it myself, but I'll actually give it to someone to do it for me
When
now.
I
you know?
discovered just bags and you put a little thing on them, you're
Yeah,
done.
yeah,
Like
that's
gift
what I
bags.
see. That's what I see now. But even like the way I would want to go about things is a little different. I don't know if I'm ever gonna do that anymore. So you know, anyone listening, don't expect that shit out of me. But I remember I would like find gifts, like a good secret or a good technique to like find what your significant other wants.
Go through their search history.
Go through their search history.
Yeah, look at their phone.
Go through like the stores that they look up, Nordstrom. See the ones that pop up the most. That's probably what they want. And it's actually not
true,
that. Yeah.
This is like not safe for work life hacks. Like go through your partner's search history.
Go through their deleted messages.
You might get a 2-for-1 though.
Oh, no.
Surprise that you're not happy with. But yeah, no, seriously. I feel like I've always thought there should be a service for that too. Someone for people who are really bad at gifting.
Like a private investigator. Just
Yeah,
for
yeah. Like what do you think I should give my girlfriend for Valentine's Day? You know, and they look through the profile and like what can I talk about? And it's like, oh, this makeup thing she talked about 3 times. It's like maybe you should get her this.
Yeah.
I think that would be like a brilliant business.
I don't know,
right,
Peter.
I
I
would-
feel like you do need that Asian coach.
I saw that. What the fuck?
Oh my God. Can we talk about
My
that?
God. What? Okay, so for you guys who don't know,
The story.
yeah, I got a DM yesterday from some Asian dude. I forget his name, but he had some small talk at first, like, oh, let's connect or whatever. So I was like, oh, sure. He asked me what I did for work, and then he went through and said, oh yeah, I'm a Asian dating coach for online dating coach for guys to meet their dream girl. And I was like, what the fuck? He just told me I had a nice profile picture, and now he's saying that, like, insinuating that I need coaching for dating.
Yeah.
So I'm like, is he just trying to sell me? I mean, obviously he was after a while.
Yeah.
But I was like, God damn, is this guy even, like, being selective? Or do I just look like the type that needs
Do
coaching?
you feel like there's a need for that in the community, the Asian guy community? Like, is he doing a good service?
Honestly, I do think the stereotype is Asian guys tend to be the most timid. And if you're timid, I think the best approach is probably not going to be approaching someone in real life. It's probably going to be online. So in that way, I do agree. But I mean, okay, you guys look at my fucking profile. because like seriously, if you look at that shit, Do I look like I'm fucking timid?
No.
Do I look like I have a fucking podcast? You see me on it. What in the
He doesn't
fuck?
need help talking to people.
Yeah, like what the? Oh my god.
Hey, I put up a poll to see if you need help. People voted that
But-
you need the coaching.
All right,
and the people have spoken.
But you also know that the people who know me are always trolling me. Always fucking trolling me, right? People
Peter,
love
you need a little
trolling.
hand.
Has it been longer than a year since you've dated anyone?
You fucking know that, bitch. You fucking bitch. That's my choice. That's
You didn't
different.
know by choice.
Yeah.
He has chosen to be celibate and not date anyone to work on himself and everything.
I did that for years in college too,
Yeah.
by choice.
Yeah. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing air quotes? Why are you doing air quotes? What the hell? Jesus Christ, I feel fucking attacked.
Yeah, so he hasn't like dated over a year and stuff, but he's like every morning he's like, damn, I'm so bricked up, sending like thotties and stuff. And, like, thotties.
Wow. You can't out me like that,
I
bro?
was like, don't worry, it's not going to feature it. I was going to ask you though, how do you feel that the podcast has changed you?
I mean, I really have found like who I am through that podcast.
Oh, wow.
And then like it's challenged me in so many different ways. Like, you know, being that person, like I have to be a leader. Like, cause at first we were just doing it to mess around, but then I was like, somebody's got to steer this ship somewhere.
Yeah.
And then the consistency of it, like it really made me feel like committed to something. And it gives me kind of like a drive and a purpose sometimes to like keep it going.
Yeah.
So that's the thing too. And then it's also like the confidence thing. Like, I think, you know, growing up, you know, and being with the partner I am today, but also, you know, working on this thing, it's really like, it makes me feel like, you know, I do matter, and it is important what I have to say, but also like I'm at the point where I built a platform, and I should have some ego with that, not in a good way. Like, and you know, it's tough sometimes when you know, you try to book a guest and then they just cancel on you like right away, and I'm like, dog, this isn't some show that you can just do that to.
Yeah.
You know, like. So just being that person, and you know, I try to play that confident person on the radio, but now I feel like I am that person.
Wow,
Yep.
that's awesome.
And I totally feel that too, because it's like you, especially like with us too, like, you know, doing this and creating a platform, creating something, like it does make you feel different, does change you a little bit. And from so much talking that we listen, but we do so much fucking talking too, where it's like I feel like I've gotten better at expressing myself, talking, communicating. And like the thing of like, you know, it's kind of like a fake it till you make it thing, where it's like you pretend to be this person, like, yeah, you have to be this person, fill this role, and eventually you become that. I've had the same experience, and you know, it's crazy.
Yeah, you just feel good. Like,
Is there anyone that you have as like a dream guest, or someone you're looking forward to, or like what are the future plans for the podcast?
I mean, for us, it's like we've always wanted to do more things outside. I always wanted to do a live podcast in front of an audience, but I tried that last year and I failed.
So what was your concept?
It was like we had a plan to do a discussion. It was with the collaboration with True 100 Radio, which is another platform here in Orange County. And we did this event where we were going to have performances, DJ mix, and then they were going to do a live podcast in the middle of that. But it's like I wanted to test it out because I didn't really feel like doing a podcast in the middle of like a party atmosphere was going to work. And so I was up there, I started talking, and I saw the crowd lose interest like 2 minutes in, and I was like, all right, let's go back to the music.
Wow.
So maybe doing that one day and just doing more like showcases for artists,
Yeah.
because
Nice.
the point of our show is you know, it is, you know, to mess around and do the podcast part, which is just the intro, but the heavy part of it is the interview with the guests. And I've always wanted to put people like, give people their due, like their shine. So I want to do more events like that. Last year, towards the end of last year, I did a little documentary that told the story of a few artists in Orange County, and I want to do a lot more of that stuff, like the film stuff that I learned that I didn't use in college. I want to incorporate that now to combine it all together.
Nice.
And just like, because I see like the weekly podcast is always going to be what it is, but at the same time, like I want to build on top of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, in terms of dream guests, like there's people that are popping in Orange County in the area that we haven't had a chance to talk to yet, like Vel the Wonder, great artist. She's a rapper from LA. And it's just one of those things where I want to get to that point where, okay, like I know who you are, I'm going to come through. And it's just about building and networking.
Yeah.
And slowly but surely we'll get there. I mean, and that's what Mondo says all the time. He goes, we just got to keep building, and then, you know, the right person will see it at a certain point, and that's it. Because in terms of like what we're doing, the platform itself, like we're number one on that, the Hits 101 radio, our station. We've been number one for 4 years.
Oh shit.
And so now I'm like, well, I've been number one for 4 years. Like, what do I want to do now? Like this is the plateau. This is the peak, but I want to go further. Like, where do you go from here? You know, and that's just everything I mentioned. Thank you.
All right, guys, welcome back to Lightning Round, where we ask our guests some rapid fire questions. If they can't answer, they have to drink their water. Cesar, are you ready?
Yes.
All right, 3, 2, 1. If you were a DJ, what would your name be?
CZ World Peace.
What do you use for your hair?
Suavecito hair cream.
What about for shampoo and conditioner?
Pantene 2-in-1. They get mad when I say that.
Yeah,
I take it back, Carla. His hair's not nicer than yours. Favorite food?
Favorite food? It's probably gonna be In-N-Out double.
Ooh,
Wow.
Animal style?
No, just regular.
Really?
Yeah, I like it with grilled onions.
If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
I don't know. I mean, maybe my height, maybe a little bit taller, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Do you have a spirit animal?
Spirit animal, I feel like I've always related to like a dog, like one of those, like a golden retriever.
Yeah, I can see that.
My sister has one, so I always been able to relate to Captain the dog.
Do you have a fetish?
Oh, fetish. I mean,
It's not.
damn, the one thing I won't answer.
The funny thing is, like, you still have to answer. We always make them drink, and they're like, "Oh, okay, I'll drink."
Okay,
and I'm like,
okay.
You still have to.
I got you. Something that unusually now kind of turns me on is if I listen to somebody's voice and they have a good voice. And I'm very comfortable in the fact that I'm straight, but he could be a guy too. And if they have a smooth voice on the microphone, I'm like, whoa.
Shout out to BTE,
Yeah.
lead singer Apollo Bebop.
Yeah.
So it's a voice thing. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because editing audio, you hear voices all day. So
That's
when
true.
somebody has a unique one, you're like, oh, this is interesting, and it does give you that little feeling of like, oh.
Worst date you've ever had?
Worst date I've ever had. Oh yeah, so I took one time, and I was in high school. I took this girl to the winter formal, and by the end of it, she kissed my friend. She kissed my friend, and I still gave them a ride home after.
No!
Oh, no! And I was like texting him like, I hate you, dude. And she was sitting in between us.
No.
Holy fuck.
What was her name?
Megan.
Fuck you, Megan.
Fuck you, Megan. How could you do that to our boy?
The last time you cried?
Last time I cried, I was what was I watching? Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, yeah, me too.
wow.
Cried for like 2 hours
Dude, me
What?
too.
Damn,
straight. Like the whole movie, basically.
A lot of people cried at that.
Me and B went, and we were both crying in the theater. We were like,
Fuck.
Being a little bit under the influence does make me feel really emotional, but I was like sober, and I was just still like, not even manly tears. Like,
dude, no, that was good. All right, and my last one. Any word of advice for anybody out there listening?
Just be true to who you are, and just smoke responsibly.
Hey. If you had a rapper name, what would it be?
CZE was my rapper name. But I mean, before we wrap up, I do have an actual DJ name because I do DJ soul, disco, and oldies under the name Curtis Winfield.
What?
Yeah, it's a combination of the singer Curtis Mayfield and then Jules Winfield from Pulp Fiction. I combined them into this character because I didn't want to put it out there that I DJ'd, but now you're getting the exclusive here.
Oh, nice.
I've done a few of them on the Rodriguez Show page.
Oh, nice.
And I changed my voice. I pretend to be somebody else.
Shut the hell, really?
Because I don't want to be that. Yeah, I modify it just for fun.
Can you estimate it? How you sound right now? Like
It's like super deep, like this.
Dude,
I just turned it
He's off
down.
of the voice.
he gets himself bricked up.
He's listening to himself every morning.
Like, oh, this is sexy.
He's like, Claire, give me a sec. I'll be right back.
It's his own voice.
Where do you want to travel next?
Greece. I went to Italy. I want to go to Greece now.
Oh,
and then I did a layover in Japan for a few hours. I wanted to explore that more.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite kind of car?
I had a Dodge Challenger for a while. I
sick.
just sold it to buy a new computer for the show.
Whoa.
Yeah, I had it for a few years, and I was like, you know what? I'm ready to get rid of this. Like, I had my dream car already, and now I'm like, what do I get next?
That's dedication. That's dedication. All right. Where do you see yourself in 3 years?
I mean, the goal what I'm trying to build to is, to have my own, studio. I've been talking to this is one I don't like to announce things where they happen, so this is like far in the future. It's just like basically a compound where you can do private events, you can do podcast recording, mix music for artists.
Nice.
All that stuff is I'm hoping that happens soon.
Nice. Okay. If you change one thing in the world, what would it be?
I guess I would change the internet. Because
really
it's too much. Like I spent a lot of time in my life like thinking the internet's coming for me. And now I'm a little bit more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm just scared of the internet, man. Like, it just, we talked about earlier, like somebody could just throw something out there and then you're done.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
So that's why I would change.
I totally thought you were going to say, like, bring back Tupac or...
Yeah. When you have kids, what's one thing you would not let them do?
Probably the device is too early.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, I also would want to have a super control as to what they would watch, not like because they would watch inappropriate things, just because I'm like, I want you to know the same references that I do.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, here, watch Hey Arnold, watch
Yeah. Damn, football head.
all this stuff. So they wouldn't be able to watch regular TV.
Got it. Okay. And when you do have kids, what would be the first genre of music that you have them listen to? And what would be that track?
I guess for kids, I mean, I think I wouldn't start with hip hop right away, just because it has to come at the right time.
Yeah.
I think I'd start with stuff that's gonna open their mind a little bit. So like Tame Impala, I know it's kind of might be basic to some people, but like that kind of experimental psychedelic stuff, it's still appropriate for like your kids can listen to it.
Yeah.
But you know that it's beyond what you hear like every day and like the radio. I'm not saying the radio is bad either, but it's like, hey, this is what music can be, So I would play that song "Let It Happen" by Tame Impala.
When you have a family, what's the first festival you're taking them to?
It's gonna be Coachella.
Yeah.
Just because of the history we have with
You're right, you're
Coachella.
right.
This is where your mom and I had our...
Yeah, this is how I know your mother.
All right, guys, that concludes our lightning round. I want to say thank you to our very funky, very fresh guest, Cesar Rodriguez. Let us know where we can find you.
You can find me at I am Cesar Rod on Twitter and Instagram, and then The Rodriguez Show is the podcast that I do as well. You can follow that. And then lastly, Cesar Rod Podcast and Video. That's where I do all my podcast producing.
Nice. And thank you guys for joining us this entire time. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment below what you guys want us to talk about next time. And remember,
Live fast and eat ass.